It's weird, I know, and I haven't done it for a few weeks. I think you'll understand why. Anyway, at midnight, there's no ferries running through the city, so I can glide peacefully down the river past the glittering skyscrapers with no fear of being capsized or run over. It's safer. Well, I guess I wasn't so right about that. People act like the river is just another pretty thing the city gets to have. Like it's a feature. Like it's a fountain in a mall. It isn't. It's an animal. It's a long, slow, patient thing that eats whatever drops into it and never really gives it back. The locals call it the brown snake because it's mud brown and it curls through the city like something that got lost and decided to stay. They'll also tell you it's full of bull sharks and catfish the size of toddlers. I always laughed at that part. I've never seen either, not once, and I've been on it enough to know where the dead shopping carts and tangled fishing line likes to hide. I figured the shark talk was just an old scare tactic to keep kids from swimming. Trust me though, you still don't want to fall in. That shit is toxic, like for real toxic, not EU gross toxic. You can smell the chemical bite when the tide's low. You can taste in the air some nights, metallic and sour, like you licked a battery. But I kept going out there anyway, because I'm an idiot and because there's something addictive about being alone in the middle of a sleeping city. I work late. My brain runs hot. The water shuts it up. That was the deal. I'd finish up, load the kayak, cut across a couple empty streets, and slip in at this little launch spot that's technically not even a launch spot. It's a gap in the fence where somebody cut the chain years ago. You squeeze through, you drag the kayak over rocks slick with algae, and you're on the river before you could talk yourself out of it. That night was clear, full moon, the kind of night where the city lights don't feel harsh. They look like they're floating too. The skyscrapers were all lit up, office floors like stacked aquariums, and the moon sat on the river like a coin someone forgot to pick up. The water was unusually calm, which should have been a warning all by itself, because that river is rarely calm in the middle of the city. Even when nothing's moving, it's moving. It swirls around pylons. It pulls at your paddle. It drags trash into little slow circles like it's thinking about it. I pushed off and started my lazy route. I had a routine because you need one on that river. You can't just freestyle it. There are spots where the current grabs you sideways, where the tide meets the flow and does this weird tug-of-war thing. There are dead zones where the water goes thick and slow and you feel like you're paddling through syrup. There are underpasses you avoid if it's rained, because runoff turns the edges into a slick, oily froth that looks like someone dumped dish soap into the river. And there are bridges. A lot of them. Most of the bridges are fine. Most of them are just concrete and steel and light poles. A little hum of traffic even at night. A shadow, sure, but a normal shadow. You go under, you come out, and you don't think about it. This one wasn't like that. Second bridge on my route, the one that cuts right across the inner city like a scar. It had construction on it for months. They've been working on the underside, the support beams, all that stuff nobody looks at until it fails. During the day, you could see the scaffolding and the hanging tarps and those orange safety lights blinking even when nobody was there. At night, it looked like a black line across the stars. I wasn't even thinking about it at first. I was watching the reflection show, the way my paddle made ripples that bent the city into a wobbling smear. I was in that half trance you get when you've done something 100 times and your body runs it without your brain. Then I heard it, a flapping noise, alarmingly loud. At first my brain did the normal thing. It tried to be sensible. Construction tarp, I thought. Loose plastic. Some asshole left something hanging and the wind slapping it. That bridge catches wind in weird ways because of the towers downtown. You get gusts that come off the glass buildings and funnel down the river like someone exhaled through a straw. But this wasn't random wind slap. It was in rhythm. Flap, 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 stop, and then again. Same spacing, same weight. Like somebody clapping their hands while wearing thick leather gloves. Like heavy plastic hitting metal, yeah, but too deliberate. Too even. The sound carried straight down the river, and it hit me in the chest more than my ears, like you feel bass through a wall. I slowed without meaning to. My paddle went from lazy strokes to little corrective taps. The kayak drifted and the river, calm as it was, still carried me forward. The closer I got, the louder it got, and not in the normal way sound gets louder when you approach it. It swelled too fast, like someone was turning a knob. It was driving me nuts. It was like it was happening inside my skull. Like my brain had decided this was the new heartbeat it was going to use. I told myself out loud, it's just a tarp. I actually said it like a moron, like speaking makes reality behave. My voice sounded wrong out there too. It got swallowed. The river does that. It doesn't echo like an alley. It just eats sound. The bridge shadow was ahead, a long black slash cutting the brown snake in two. The water under the moon was glossy, almost pretty, and then that shadow looked like someone took a marker and drew over the river. Not a gradient, not a normal dimming. It was a void, completely dead. I normally don't mind going under bridges, but this shadow seemed off. I can't explain it in a way that doesn't sound like bullshit, but the shadow didn't just look dark. It looked deep. It looked like it wasn't on the surface. It looked like if I crossed the line, I'd drop straight down into some hole that wasn't supposed to be there. Like the river ended and something else started. The flapping kept going. Flap, 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 stop. Flap, 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 stop. I stopped paddling. The kayak coasted. My hands went damp on the shaft of the paddle, not from splashes, from sweat. The air was cooler near the bridge too, like it had its own weather. It smelled different. The river smell is usually mud and rot and that sharp chemical thing, but near that shadow I got this weird dusty smell like old insulation, like the inside of a wall. I had this sudden urge to turn around, so strong it felt like nausea, like my stomach had figured it out before my head. The void ahead, the rhythm in my ears, the fact that there were no other sounds, no distant music, no drunk yelling from the riverwalk, no car horns, nothing. Just that flapping and the soft lap of water against plastic hull. I'd had enough. I was turning around. I shoved my paddle in and pivoted hard. The kayak swung, slow, because the river was thick there, and when I faced back, the city looked normal again. Lights, moon, open water. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. I started paddling away fast, like if I put distance between me and that shadow, my body would stop freaking out. Only the sound didn't get quieter. It stayed the exact same volume. I did 2 strokes, 3, hard enough my shoulders barked, and the flapping stayed right there in my ear. Flap, 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 stop. Flap, 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 stop. I actually stopped again and listened because my brain couldn't accept it. Sound doesn't do that. Sound fades, unless it's coming with you. I turned my head left and right like that would help. It didn't. It was centered. It was inside me, or behind me, or above me. I couldn't tell, and that's when panic started climbing my throat. I paddled harder. The kayak cut the river clean, little V-wake behind me, and the city lights smeared in my peripheral vision because I was moving fast. The flapping stayed. Same rhythm, same violence. How was it following me? What the fuck was it? What did it want with me? The river narrowed a little where I was headed because of a curve and some pylons, and I knew if I kept going I'd hit a stretch where the current does a sideways pull toward a concrete wall. I'd done enough to correct for it, but my hand was shaking now. My paddle kept hitting the water wrong. My strokes were sloppy. I started veering without meaning to. My breathing got loud in my own ears, and then even that got drowned by the flapping. It swelled again like a knob turning. Flap became a roar, like a sheet of metal being slammed again and again. The rhythm sped up, or maybe my heart sped up and my brain matched them. Either way, it got so loud, I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second like you do when you pass a jackhammer on the sidewalk. That was a mistake, because in that half second, I felt something change in the water. The kayak didn't just rock. It got yanked, not by current, not by wake, by something with a direction. The bow dipped hard like a giant hand pushed it down, and my paddle scraped the side of the hull because my arms went limp for a beat. I opened my eyes, and I wasn't looking at open water anymore. The bridge shadow was beside me. Not ahead, beside, which made no sense because I turned around. I'd been paddling away. I should have been farther from it, not right next to it. But there it was, that black slash, and the edge of it looked sharp like an actual seam in the world. And the flapping. It wasn't in my ear anymore. It was above me, right above. Then an immense force flung me forward. I don't mean I tipped. I don't mean the kayak rolled and I fell. I mean something hit me like a truck. The kayak shot out from under me. My body went airborne for a stupid, weightless moment where I saw the moon, the underside of the bridge, the line of orange construction lights, all spinning like a broken carousel. And then I plunged into the river. The brown snake is warm in a way that feels wrong. Not bath warm, not summer lake warm, warm like a cooling engine. The water wrapped me and it stank instantly, mud and sewage and chemicals all together, and it went up my nose and down my throat before I could close my mouth. I bit down hard and still got a mouthful of it. It tasted like pennies and rot. Everything went black. Not night black, mud black. I was completely blind down there. I couldn't even see the faint moon glow. The river swallowed it. The water had weight. It pushed against my ears. It pressed in my eyes. It filled the gaps in my clothes and made everything heavy. Every story I'd ever heard about that river hit me at once. Toxic sludge dumps, dredging, needles, bull sharks, mutant fish, dead bodies. My mind threw them at me like it was trying to pick the worst option and stick with it. I kicked, but I didn't know which way was up for a second because panic messes with you. I felt the life vest tugging at my chest, trying to bring me up, but I fought it. That's the insane part. I fought it because my first clear thought was, don't put your head up. That thing might see you. I don't know why I thought that, because I didn't even know what that thing was. I hadn't seen anything, but the flapping had felt like presence, like attention, and the idea of breaking the surface felt like stepping into a spotlight. So I stayed under longer than I should have. I held my breath until my lungs burned. I tried to keep my arms tight to my body because something down there could grab them. I know how stupid that sounds, but your brain in that moment is not a rational, scientific instrument. It's an animal. Mine was screaming, stay small, stay hidden. The water tugged at me, pulling me towards something. I thought it was current at first, but it wasn't the normal sideways pull. It was straight. It was like being reeled. My hand hit something solid. Wood? Metal? It felt like, I don't know, it felt like a beam, slick with slime. I grabbed it without thinking because something solid in that black felt like salvation. My fingers slid. Whatever it was had this greasy coating. I clenched harder, and then I felt it. A vibration, not the flapping sound, a vibration through the thing I was holding. Like something was moving along it above me, like a heavy body, shifting weight. The vibration traveled down into my hand and into my arm like a message. My grip went weak. I let go. I kicked hard, finally letting the life vest do its job. My lungs were on fire. My throat wanted to cough. Coughing underwater is the worst kind of betrayal your body can do. I started to rise, and with the rise came panic in a new flavor. Because now I had to break the surface. Now I had to show myself. I came up with a horrid half-gasp, half-shriek, coughing river water, choking, eyes squeezed shut because mud burned them. I sputtered and tried to wipe my face with my hands, but my hands were covered in slime and grit, and it just smeared. I blinked and saw nothing but brown blur. My eyes were clouded by river mud. It wasn't just on my eyelids. It felt like it was in my eyes. Gritty, scratching every blink. Tears came and mixed with it and made it worse, like turning dirt into paste. I spun in the water, trying to orient. The city lights were smeared. The moon was a pale blotch. I couldn't find the kayak. I couldn't even tell where the bridge was, except the sound. Flap, 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 stop. It was back, quieter now, but still close enough to make my stomach drop. The water around me moved weird. Little ripples, not from my splashing, from something else. Something displacing water with purpose. I couldn't see it, but I felt the push against my legs like a wake. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but I knew if I opened my mouth, I'd drink more river. I kicked and started swimming the stupidest way possible, just toward the brightest light I could see. Not toward known shore. Not toward a familiar spot. Just light. I needed out. I needed concrete under my hands. I needed air that didn't smell like a sewer. My ears were full of water, and every sound was muffled except the flapping. That sound cut through everything like it had its own channel. It stayed in that same rhythm, like a metronome for something big and patient. Flap, 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 stop. I swam hard enough my arms cramped. The life vest kept me afloat, but it also made my strokes awkward. I kept turning my head to spit out water, and every time I did, I got another smear of light and shadow. The riverbank was there somewhere. The highway ran along the inner city in that stretch, elevated in parts, with those big concrete supports. If I could just get to the edge, I could crawl up. Something brushed my foot. Not a fish bump. Not trash. It felt like a hand. Like fingers quick and testing. I kicked reflexively, and my heel hit nothing. I kicked again and felt the brush again, higher up my calf. Cold against my skin through the river warmth. It made my whole leg go numb. I stopped kicking for half a second, frozen, and the water tugged at me again. That same straight pull like being reeled. My body shifted back an inch, too. Nope. I thrashed. I swam like a drowned rat, ugly and desperate. And I aimed for the edge where I could see the highway lights reflecting off wet concrete. The riverbank, there is a mess of rocks and slime and old bottles. It's not a nice river walk. It's the part of the city that everyone pretends isn't there. I hit something solid with my hand, a rock or a concrete chunk, and I grabbed it so hard my fingers hurt. I hauled myself in, scraping my knees, dragging my heavy-soaked clothes over algae-slick stone. My life vest bumped against rock and made me slip. I almost slid back in, and that panic gave me strength I didn't know I had. I dug my nails into the slime and pulled. The flapping was still there. Close. Right behind me in the water. Flap. 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 Stop. I got one knee up, then both, then I rolled onto my stomach and crawled like a disgusting animal onto the bank. The smell hit me different out of the water, sharper, like the river on my clothes was now a chemical rag. My skin felt like it was buzzing. My eyes burned so bad I couldn't keep them open. And then the sound stopped. Just stopped. No thought, no distance. 1 second, it was the rhythm that had taken over my whole world, and the next it was gone like somebody hit mute. The sudden silence was worse. My ears rang. My breathing sounded obscene, wet and loud. I lay there panting, cheek pressed to cold stone, tasting river in my mouth. Try not to puke, because puking would mean opening my throat again, and I didn't trust what was still in me. I forced my eyes open enough to see. The river beside me looked normal again. Brown, calm, reflecting the city like nothing happened. The bridge was upriver, orange lights blinking, shadow line cutting across the water like an ordinary shadow. No flopping dart, no movement, nothing. I pushed up onto my hands, and that's when pain hit my back. Not a bruise pain, a hot, open pain, like something had carved me. I reached behind without thinking, and my fingers came away slick. I looked at my hand in the highway light, and it was dark, almost black. Blood mixed with river grime. Oh fuck, I whispered. My voice cracked. I tried to stand, and my legs wobbled. The bank led up to a strip of concrete, then a narrow shoulder along the inner city highway. Cars were sparse at that hour, but not zero. A couple headlights swept by. I stumbled toward them, half waving, half just trying not to fall back into the river. The first car didn't slow. It just went by, tires hissing on damp pavement. The second one slowed a little and then sped up like the driver saw me and decided I was a problem. I wanted to chase it and scream, but my throat was wrecked from coughing river. A third car approached, a white sedan, and I threw both arms up like a maniac. It braked hard, tires chirping. The window rolled down and a man's voice snapped. "What the hell are you doing?" I fell in. I croaked. "Please, I need help. I am bleeding." He stared at me like I was going to rob him. Which fair, I probably looked like some swamp thing. River mud plastered to my face. Clothes soaked, dripping. Eyes red. I was shaking so hard my teeth clicked. He didn't get out. He kept his doors locked. Back up from the car, he said. Back up. I'm not, dude. I'm not trying to. I just need. I coughed and it turned into this wet gag. I swallowed it down. I need a ride. Hospital. Please. He cracked his door just enough to point at me with his chin. You on something? That pissed me off in a stupid, bright way. Like anger was easier than terror for a second. Yeah, I snapped, voice ragged. I'm on fucking river water, man. I just got thrown off my kayak. Look at me. He hesitated. His eyes flicked down my body and then up again. Then he said, slower, turn around. What? Turn around, he repeated. Let me see. I turned, and that's when I felt it fully. Air hitting an open wound. It was like my back was breathing. The guy sucked in a breath through his teeth. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Get in. Get in the back. Front's fine. I started because my pride is stupid. Back, he barked. You're dripping. I almost argued. Then I shut up and yanked the back door open. He kept glancing at his mirrors like he expected me to pull a knife. I didn't blame him. I slid onto the seat and the upholstery soaked instantly. The car filled with river stink. Seatbelt, he said automatically, then looked at me like he didn't even care if I flew through the windshield. He just wanted me contained. I fumbled for it and clicked it in. He peeled off and drove, fast but not reckless. We didn't talk for a minute. The silence was thick. I tried to wipe my eyes with my sleeve, and it just smeared more mud. Every blink felt like sandpaper. What happened? He finally asked, voice tight. I don't know, I said. Something hit me. Under the bridge. He snorted like he didn't believe me. Hit you? Like a boat. No buts. Iraspad. Midnight. It was calm. I heard something, and then I don't know. I was in the water. He glanced back. You sure you didn't get jumped? There's people down there. I was on the river. I snapped. In a kayak. How the fuck would someone jump me from the middle of the river? He didn't answer that. He just drove. The pain in my back got worse by the minute, like now that I was out and my body had a second to register it, it decided to punish me. My whole spine felt like a live wire. The river water in my clothes chilled me. I started shivering so hard my knees knocked together. You're gonna ruin my seats, he muttered, like that was the problem. I looked at the back of his head and had this insane urge to laugh. Sorry, I said, and it came out mean. I'll pay for your fucking detailing if I don't bleed out. He shot me a look in the mirror. Don't get smart with me. I stopped. Didn't I? Yeah, I said. You did. He took me to the nearest hospital because that's what I begged for, and because calling an ambulance would have meant waiting on the side of a highway half naked in river sludge, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't sit still. I kept thinking if I stopped moving, whatever had been in the water would have time to catch up. The ER entrance was lit too bright. The automatic doors whooshed open and cold air hit me. It made my skin crawl. The driver half shoved me out and then immediately backed away like I was contagious. A security guard inside looked up and his face did this slow shift from bored to alarmed. Sir, I need help, I said, and my voice cracked again. I fell in the river. He wrinkled his nose. Jesus, get a wheelchair. I can walk. I lied, and then my legs buckled and I grabbed the counter. The driver hovered behind me, already trying to disengage. I brought him in, he said quickly, like he wanted credit and also wanted to be free. He's bleeding. The security guard's eyes flicked to the back of my shirt where the blood had soaked through in a dark, uneven patch. Okay, sit down. Don't touch anything. Fuck you, I wanted to say, but I didn't have the energy. I just slumped onto a plastic chair and left a wet streak. A nurse came out, older woman, hair pulled tight, the kind of face that's seen every dumb injury a human can create. She took one look at me and her eyes narrowed. Not cruel, just assessing. Name? She asked. I gave it. She asked date of birth. I gave it. She asked what happened. I said, I fell in the river and something cut my back. She made a sound like disbelief, but didn't argue. All right, we're gonna get you cleaned up. Don't put me in a shower. I blurted because the idea of standing in a tile box with water pouring down on me made my stomach flip. Water felt like betrayal now. She stared at me. It's not a shower. It's a rinse. You're covered in God knows what. Please, I said, and I hated how small it sounded. I can't, just wipe me. I don't know. She softened by about 0.5 millimeter. Okay, we'll see. They rolled me into a curtained bay. The curtains swished shut and the fluorescent lights buzzed. A younger nurse came in with gloves up to her elbows and a face mask like I was radioactive. Which, honestly, I might have been. Can you take off your shirt? She asked. I tried and it stuck to my back, glued by blood and river grime. I hissed, and she held up a hand. Okay, don't pull. We'll cut it. She took trauma shears and snipped my shirt up the side. When she peeled the fabric away from my skin, I saw her eyes widen above her mask. Holy, she started, then caught herself. That's a deep laceration. How bad? I asked, voice tight. We're gonna page the doctor, she said, and she moved faster now. They cleaned my face first, saline and wipes, and it burned like hell. Mud came off in streaks. My eyes finally cleared enough to see the room properly, and what I saw made me feel worse. Brown water dripping off me onto white hospital sheets, little grains of river grit on the floor. The smell, even through their masks, was making them tense. The doctor came in, a man with tired eyes and a clipped tone. He looked at my back and said, "What cut you?" "I don't know," I said. "Something under the bridge." He gave me a look like, "Sure, buddy. Were you in a fight?" "No." "Any chance this is self-inflicted?" I turned my head as far as I could to look at him. "You think I cut my own back and then jumped in the river for fun?" He held my gaze for a second, then nodded like he'd heard stupider things, which was probably true. "All right, we're gonna irrigate and stitch. You're lucky you came in. River water carries a lot of bacteria." "Yeah," I muttered. "No cheat." They numbed me, but numbing a cut like that doesn't erase the sensation. You still feel pressure. You still feel tugging. You still feel the moment the needle pierces skin and pulls through, even if it's dulled. I gripped the side of the bed so hard my fingers cramped. The nurse kept saying, "Breathe, breathe," like I was giving birth. At one point, the doctor paused and said low to the nurse, "What does that look like to you?" She leaned in, like a rake. "A rake?" I rasped. They both looked at me like they forgot I could hear. The doctor cleared his throat. "It's an unusual pattern," he said, too neutral. "Unusual how?" I demanded, and my voice cracked into anger because that felt better than fear. He sighed. "It's long. It's deep. It's not a clean slice like glass. It's multiple parallel tracks, like something with points." I swallowed. The image that came to mind was claws. Not cat claws. Not little scratches. Big claws, the kind that hook and pull. "How many stitches?" I asked because numbers feel like control. He didn't answer right away. He kept working. Then he said a lot. It ended up being 58. I remember because the nurse counted out loud, and I fixated on it like if I held the number in my head, I wouldn't spiral. 58 stitches. Deep enough they had to do layers. Deep enough the doctor muttered about muscle. Deep enough my whole back felt like it had been peeled. When they finished, they cleaned around it again and wrapped it. The bandage felt tight. Every time I breathed, the skin pulled. They gave me antibiotics. They asked me if I had a tetanus shot recently. I didn't remember. They gave me one anyway. They told me infection signs, fever, redness, streaking. They told me to keep it dry. Keep it clean. Come back if it oozes. No heavy lifting. No strenuous activity. No swimming. I almost laughed at that last one. The driver had vanished at some point, which was fine. I didn't need him hovering like I owed him friendship. They asked if I had someone to pick me up. I said no. The nurse looked annoyed, like my lack of support system was an inconvenience she could bill me for. I ended up taking a rideshare home because I wasn't about to walk, and the rideshare driver complained the whole time about the smell. He kept cracking the window and making dramatic noises with his nose. "You smell like dead fish," he said. "Yeah," I said, staring out the window. "I know. You can't get in my car like that," he argued, even though I was already in his car. "Then stop the car and let me out." I snapped. He huffed. "Hospitals should have showers." I clenched my jaw and didn't answer. If I opened my mouth, I was going to say something ugly. I was too tired to waste energy on a guy who only existed as a problem for 15 minutes. When I got home, my apartment smelled normal. Dust, laundry, old coffee. It should have comforted me. Instead, it made me feel like I didn't belong in it, like I'd brought something from the river that didn't match the clean indoor air. I stripped in my bathroom, careful with the bandage, and my clothes hit the tile with a wet slap. The water that dripped off them made little brown puddles. I stared at the puddles and felt my stomach roll because it looked like the river had followed me in, like it had bled onto my floor. I tried to wash my hands and the smell stayed. I scrubbed until my knuckles went pink. Still there. That metallic rot, that chemical edge. I brushed my teeth twice and still tasted pennies and mud. I didn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the rhythm. Flap, 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 stop. Flap, 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 stop. It wasn't just a memory of sound either. It felt physical, like something inside my head was moving in that pattern. Like my brain was a bridge and something was working on the underside. I lay on my side because my back couldn't touch anything without fire shooting down my spine. The bandage stuck in places where blood had dried. When I shifted, it tugged and I'd gasp. At about 3 in the morning, I got up to pee and caught myself looking out my window toward the river, even though I couldn't see it from my building. I just knew which direction it was. The city lights looked too sharp, too awake. I had this stupid thought that the river wasn't asleep, that it never sleeps, that it just waits. I tried to be normal the next day. I told myself it was an accident, that something on the bridge had come loose, a metal strap or a hanging cable, and when I passed under it snapped and knocked me in and cut me. That's what my brain wanted, because it's a story with edges. It's a thing you can point to. It's OSHA. It's physics. But then I'd remember the sound not fading when I paddled away. I'd remember how the bridge shadow had been beside me when it shouldn't. I'd remember the tug under the water, straight and deliberate. I'd remember that brush on my leg like fingers. And the rational story would crumble. By the 3rd day, the cut started to itch, which sounds like a good sign, but it felt wrong. It itched deep under the skin like something crawling along the stitch line. I'd slap at it, and it would send a bolt of pain through me, and I'd curse out loud in my empty apartment like that helped. I had to go back for a wound check because the nurse had scheduled it like she didn't trust me not to rot in my own negligence. The waiting room smelled like sanitizer and stale air. I sat with my back rigid and watched daytime TV with the sound off. Every so often a door would open and I'd hear a sharp noise from a cartwheel or a piece of plastic equipment, and my whole body would tense because my brain kept trying to turn every sudden sound into that rhythm again. When they finally pulled the bandage to look, the nurse made that same face again. That what the hell face. This is healing, she said, like she was surprised it wanted to. But it's nasty. Thanks, I muttered. She pressed around it and I gripped the table. Does it look like an animal? I asked before I could stop myself. She paused. What do you mean? Like claws. She looked at me longer than she needed to. You need to tell me what happened, she said, voice firm. I did. No, she said. The truth. Anger flared, hot and immediate. I sat up a little even though it hurt. That is the truth, I snapped. I was in the river, under the bridge. Something hit me. I went in. I came out bleeding. That's it. That's all I fucking have. She didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly like she'd filed me under trauma makes people weird, which fair. Then she rebandaged me and told me to keep taking the antibiotics. And don't go back in that river, she added like she was scolding child. I'm not, I said too fast. My mouth said it, but my brain, in some dark corner, didn't agree yet because my brain was still trying to make sense of it by looping back toward it. Like poking a sore tooth. I had to go looking for answers in the only safe way I could, from land. A week after, when I could move without wanting to scream, I walked down to the river in daylight. Not to the launch spot, not with a kayak, just on the pedestrian path near the bridge, where families jog and pretend the water is pretty. The brown snake looked harmless in the sun. Murky, sure, but the surface glittered and there were little waves from wind. A couple kids leaned over a railing tossing bread to birds, and their mom yelled at them to stop. The city made normal noise. Cars, people, a siren in the distance. No flopping, no boisado, just a bridge with scaffolding and tarps. I stood there and stared at the underside where the construction was. Workers were up there in hard hats, moving slow like ants. I watched a tarp ripple in the breeze and my stomach clenched, but it was just a tarp. Random, irregular, wind-driven. Not rhythm, not deliberate. I wanted to march up to a worker and scream, "Did you drop something? Did you leave a cable hanging? Did you cut me?" But I didn't, because what would they say? Probably call security. Probably tell me to fuck off. And I didn't want to stand there like a lunatic pointing at my back. So I just watched. Under the bridge, in daylight, the shadow was there, but it was normal. It was just shade. It didn't look like a seam in the world. It didn't look deep. That almost pissed me off more, because it made my experience feel like a lie, like my own memory was trying to humiliate me. I turned to leave, and that's when I noticed something on the concrete rail. 3 dark marks. Not graffiti, not dirt. 3 smears, parallel, like someone dragged something across the top. They were dried and crusty, like old mud. People touch that rail all day. They lean on it. They set coffee cups there. And these marks sat there like nobody saw them. I stared at them too long, and a jogger brushed past me and muttered, "Move," like I was in the way. I stepped back, and my hand touched the rail by accident. The dried smear flaked under my fingertip. I froze. My skin went cold. Because even in the bright sun, even with traffic noise, even with kids laughing, my brain tried to play the rhythm again. Flap, 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 stop. It tried to fit it over the world like a filter. I pulled my hand back and rubbed my fingers together. The flake crumbled into powder. It smelled like dust, like old insulation, like the inside of a wall. I walked home fast, heart hammering, telling myself I was being dramatic. But the whole way back, I kept glancing up at birds, at plastic bags snagging trees, at anything that could move in the wind. Every flutter made me flinch. That's the part people don't get when I tell them I stopped going out. They think it's just fear, like I got scared once and now I'm cautious. I wish it was that clean. Fear you can manage. Fear you can laugh off with time. This was different. This was like my brain got rewired to recognize something. And once your brain recognizes a pattern, it hunts it. It finds it everywhere. It drags it into your sleep. It makes you listen for it, even when you're trying not to. The stitches pulled when I moved, and the scar started to form this thick rope under my skin. Sometimes I'd run my fingers along the edge of the bandage, not even touching the cut, and I'd feel a twitch under it like a reflex, like something underneath wanted to flap. I started leaving my bathroom fan on at night because the silence made me anxious, but the fan had a pulse to it, a slightly uneven wobble, and that made it worse because sometimes it would hit a rhythm close enough that my stomach would drop. I'd get out of bed, furious, and slam it off, and then stand there in the dark listening to my own breathing like a creep. One night, maybe 2 weeks after, I woke up with my mouth full of that penny taste again. I sat up fast, and pain lit my back. I spat in my hand, and in the dim light, it looked dark. For one insane second, I thought I was bleeding again. I stumbled to the bathroom, turned on the light, and saw it was just saliva tinted by the antibiotic pill I'd taken before bed. I laughed, sharp and ugly, alone in my bathroom. Then I stopped laughing because I realized my ears were ringing. Not from silence, from a sound I couldn't place, faint at first, like a distant plastic bag snapping in wind. Flap. I held my breath. Another, fainter, not from the street, not from outside, from inside my apartment, somewhere. Flap. I walked out of the bathroom barefoot, every step careful because my body was already bracing like it knew. The hallway was dark. The living room window showed the city glow. Everything was still. Flap, 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 stop. The rhythm wasn't perfect. It wasn't loud. It could have been a loose vent cover. It could have been my neighbor's ceiling fan. It could have been anything. But my knees went weak anyway. I stood there in my own apartment, staring at nothing, and I realized something simple and awful. I didn't just get hurt on that river. I brought something back in my head, maybe in my body, maybe on my skin, maybe in the stupid river water I swallowed. I don't know, but the river didn't feel contained anymore. It didn't feel like a place I could avoid by staying home. The flapping stopped. I waited a long time, hand on the wall, listening so hard my ears hurt, and nothing happened. No more sound, no movement, just the hum of my fridge and the distant city. I went back to bed anyway, because what else do? You can't call the cops and say your apartment made a flapping noise. You can't call the hospital and say the river followed you home. You just lie down and hope your brain shuts off. It didn't. I didn't go back to sleep after that. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hand like it was a weapon, staring into my dark living room, waiting for the next flap like it owed me an explanation. Nothing. That's what drove me up the wall. If something had shown itself, if I could have pointed at it and said, "That's the thing," I would have at least had a target. Instead, I had a sound that came and went when it felt like it, and my brain filled the gaps with the worst options. I try to be practical about it. I started hunting for normal causes. Loose blind cord, a plastic bag caught on the balcony, an AC register rattling. I checked everything. I tightened screws. Ich hole Tewes on the douche. I taped a loose panel on the bathroom fan. I got so obsessed, I stood on a chair at 3 in the morning, poking the smoke detector cover because it made a little click when you touched it, and my brain hated that too. For a few days, I could almost pretend it was over. My back hurt like hell, but pain is honest. Pain has rules. You move wrong, it spikes. You take the meds, it dulls. The wound had a schedule. The fear didn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back under that bridge. Not even the fall. The moment before. The void line on the water, like the river had been cut open and something underneath was showing through. The rhythm. Flap, 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 stop. Like a machine stuck in a loop. I started to hate the city at night. The way it never fully goes quiet. The way plastic trash skitters across pavement. The way pigeons beat their wings under eaves. The way a billboard tarp snaps in wind. All of it sounded like a warning now. Work didn't help. I kept snapping at people. My boss asked what was wrong, and I told him I got hurt, that I was dealing with it. He said, "Looks like you've been out partying." I told him to go fuck himself and walked out of the room. Real mature. I stopped taking the pain meds after a week because they made my dreams worse. Not scarier, just more vivid. Like my brain had extra battery life to spend on making the river real again. The weirdest part was the smell. I could not get it off me. I'd shower and I'd still catch it in my hairline, on my wrists, like river rot mixed with metal. I washed my clothes twice. I bleached towels. I scrubbed my kayak even though it had been sitting upside down on my balcony since that night, untouched. I didn't even want to look at it. I did look at it though. One afternoon, broad daylight, sun on everything, the city normal and loud. I flipped the kayak over and stared at the hull. It had a long scrape on the underside, fresh, pale plastic showing through like a scar. That made sense. Rocks, debris, getting launched. Fine. Then I saw the top. Near the seat, on the right side where my back would have been when the thing hit me, there were 3 gouges. Parallel. Not scratches from gravel. Actual gouges, like something pointed pressed in and dragged. They weren't huge, but they were deep enough to catch your fingernail. My stomach rolled. I ran my finger along them anyway because I'm stupid, and the plastic edge was sharp. It bit my skin. I went inside and washed my hands like I'd touched raw meat. That night, I decided I needed someone else to say it out loud. Not "it's okay," just something, anything. So I went back to the hospital for another check earlier than scheduled and told them the wound felt weird, which was true. It itched deep, it burned in spots, and there was this tightness like the skin wanted to tear around the stitches. They sat me in a room. A different doctor this time, younger, less patient. He pulled the bandage off and stared at my back for a long moment. "You did this on a river?" he asked. "Yes." "With what?" he asked, like he expected a straight answer. "I don't know," I said, and I could hear how insane that sounded even to me. He exhaled through his nose. "Any fever?" "No." "Any discharge?" he asked. "I don't know what that means." I snapped. He looked up at me. Pus. Leaking. No, I said calmer. Just hurts. Itches. Feels wrong. He pressed around the edges, and I clenched my teeth. It's healing, he said, but it's a nasty laceration. You're gonna have a scar. No shit, imutarat. He paused. You're anxious, he said, like he was diagnosing a rash. I laughed once. It came out ugly. Yeah, I am anxious. He didn't smile. If the story is different than what you're telling us. It isn't, I said. Louder. That's the problem. That's what happened. I don't have a better version. I don't have a neat explanation. I just got thrown like a toy and carved open. He held my gaze for a second, then went back to business. Keep it clean. No water exposure. Finish the antibiotics. And don't go back out there. I didn't. Not on the water. But I did start circling the bridge like a moth from land during daylight. I told myself I was looking for a cause. A hanging cable. A broken piece of metal. Anything that could swing down and hit a kayak. I found plenty of sharp shit. That bridge is a whole mess underneath. Bolts. Plates. Tie-down points. Rusty edges. Construction junk. It's not hard to imagine getting sliced if you got slammed into it. What I couldn't find was a reason for the sound. The rhythm. The way it stayed the same volume when I paddled away. The way the shadow looked like a hole. I tried talking to a worker once. A guy in a hard hat leaning on the fence eating chips. I walked up and asked if anything weird had happened on night shifts. Any accidents? Any loose gear? He looked me up and down and said, "You with the city?" "No," I said. "I got hurt under this bridge. I'm trying to figure out how." He chewed and shrugged. "Don't go under it then. Were you working the night of?" I started. He cut me off. "We don't work nights." "You don't?" I asked. He shook his head like I was slow. "Noise complaints. Permits. Day crew only." That punched a hole right through my last clean theory. If there's no night work, then what the hell was flapping like that at midnight? A tarp, sure, but a tarp that keeps a perfect beat? A tarp that follows you? I felt my face go hot. "So nobody's up there at night?" I asked. He smiled without humor. "Couple security rounds. That's it. Can I talk to them?" I asked. He laughed. "Yeah, good luck." He tossed his chips bag in a bin and walked away like I'd stopped existing. I stood there staring at the underside of the bridge, feeling stupid and small. That night, the flapping came back in my apartment. Not loud, not the full roar, just enough to make my skin crawl. Flap, 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 stop. It sounded like it was in the hallway. I grabbed my phone and a kitchen knife because I'm a cliché when I'm scared. I opened my door and stepped out. My hallway was empty. Dim yellow light. Carpet that smelled like old dust. A couple doors with peepholes, dead quiet behind them. Flap, 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 stop. I walked toward the stairwell. The sound got a little clearer, like it wanted me to follow. My hand shook on the knife handle. I kept thinking, if someone jumps out, I'm going to stab them and ruin my life, and then I'll still have no answers. I reached the stairwell door and pushed it open. The sound stopped. I stood there in the stairwell, breathing hard, listening. I could hear pipes ticking, a distant elevator cable hum, normal building stuff, nothing flapping. I went back inside and locked my door and sat on the floor with my back against it like a kid hiding from a monster, except I'm a grown man, and the monster was a sound that didn't even have the decency to stay. The next morning I called a friend. Not a close friend, the kind of friend you talk to once every couple months. I told him I needed help moving something from my balcony. I didn't say kayak. I didn't say river. I just said I needed a second set of hands. He showed up, took one look at the kayak, and went, "Dude, you're still doing that midnight bullshit?" "I'm not," I said. "Not anymore." He frowned. "Then why is it out here?" "Because I need it gone," I said. He laughed. "Sell it. I don't want some kid to buy it." And I stopped because that sounded insane, and also because I didn't even know what I was protecting anyone from. A bridge? A river? A rhythm? He lifted an eyebrow. "And what?" "Nothing," I said. "Just help me get in my car." He talked while we carried it, like people do when silence feels awkward. I didn't have small talk left in me. Every scrape of plastic against railing made my stomach drop. When we shoved into my car, he finally looked at me properly. "You look like shit," he said. "You sick?" "I fell in," I said. "In what?" he asked. "The river," I said. His face changed. "The brown snake?" he said like he meant it. "Yeah," I said. He made a noise like disgust. "Jesus, that's nasty. You okay?" I could have lied. I could have said I got cut by metal, and that was it. Instead, I said, "Something threw me." He stared. "A boat." "No boats," I said. He let out a short laugh, then saw my face and stopped. "Okay," he said, slower. "Okay. Like current." "No," I said. Like something grabbed me and threw me. He kept staring like he was trying to decide whether to humor me or call me crazy. "Did you see anything?" he asked. "No," I said. "Just heard it." "What?" he asked. I swallowed. Saying out loud felt like giving it permission. "Flapping," I said. "Like big wings. Or like heavy plastic slapping metal. In rhythm." He looked away toward the river direction, even though we were in a parking lot. "There's bats under those bridges," he said too quickly. "Bats don't do that," I said. He shrugged hard. "Okay." Then it was a tarp. "It followed me," I said. He exhaled and rubbed his face. "Man," he said, "you got hurt. You got scared. Your brain's looping. That happens." "I know what I heard," I snapped. He got defensive right back, which honestly helped because anger felt familiar. "And I know you're not sleeping," he snapped. "Look at you. You're vibrating." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it, because he was right about that part. My body was always braced now, like it was waiting for the next shove. He softened a little. "Look," he said, "get rid of the kayak. Stop going near the river. Give it time." I wanted to tell him time doesn't matter if the thing can find you in your hallway. I didn't. I just nodded. I drove the kayak to a storage unit on the edge of the city and shoved it in like I was locking away evidence. The unit smelled like cardboard and old oil. I pulled the door down and latched it and stood there with my hand on the lock, waiting for relief. It didn't come, because the river wasn't in the kayak. The river was in my head now. The sound was in my nerves. The next few weeks were a blur of stupid little battles. I'd be in a grocery store and hear a kid slapping a plastic bag against a cart, and my vision would narrow like I was about to faint. I'd be walking under a highway overpass, and the way the shadows fell would make my skin crawl. I stopped taking routes that went near bridges. I started leaving earlier for work to avoid certain streets. I'd cross on the far side of the road if I had to pass beneath anything overhead, like the space under a bridge could reach down and hook me. My scar started to look like a zipper got jammed. Thick, raised, ugly. It ran long and diagonal across my back, and some days it felt like it had its own mood. Tight, itchy, like a thing under there was trying to move. One night, I woke up because I heard water. Not flapping. Water. A dripping sound, steady like a faucet not fully closed. I lay there listening, heart pounding, because my apartment wasn't supposed to drip. I got up and walked to the bathroom. Nothing. Kitchen. Nothing. I crouched by the sink and listened. No drip. I checked under the cabinets. Dry. The sound kept going, but softer now, like it wasn't in the room. Like it was inside the wall. Then it shifted. Flap. Flap. Flap stop. Right on top of the drip, like they were braided together. I stood in my kitchen, half asleep, and I realized my brain had made a connection I didn't want. The sound wasn't just noise. It was a signal, a pattern, like something tapping on glass. I grabbed my phone and hit record because at that point I needed proof. I needed something that wasn't just my memory and my panic. I held the phone up, hands shaking, and waited. Flap, flap, flap stop. I heard it clear as day. In the morning, I played the recording back. Nothing. Just a fridge hum and a distant car outside. I played it again. I turned the volume up until it hurt my ears. Nothing. That broke me more than the stitches. Because either I was losing my mind or whatever it was didn't exist on microphones. Like it wasn't air pressure. Like it was something else, something that lived in the part of your skull that thinks sound into reality. I called in sick to work. Then I did it again. Then my boss called and asked if I was quitting. I said maybe. He said, then quit. We yelled at each other. I hung up. My hand was shaking so hard, I almost dropped the phone. I went back to the bridge one last time in daylight, not because I wanted to, but because my brain wouldn't shut up until I did. Like it needed to stand on the edge of the thing and stare into it. I walked along the path and stopped near the railing where I'd seen those 3 smears. They were gone now, cleaned off, or worn away. Or maybe they were never there, and I invented them to match the gouges on my kayak. I didn't know anymore. I leaned over and looked down at the river. Brown, slow, moving like it didn't care about me at all. A couple birds skimmed the surface. A tourist boat went by farther down, music faint. And under the bridge, in the shade, I saw the line again. Not a normal shadow, a darker strip on the water. A seam. My throat tightened. My hands gripped the railing hard enough my knuckles whitened. A guy walking his dog glanced at me and kept going. Normal life passing by while my brain screamed. I stared at that seam until my eyes watered. I waited for the flapping. Nothing. Then the wind shifted. A loose plastic sheet somewhere up top snapped once, random loud. My whole body jerked like I'd been hit. The dog barked. The owner shot me a dirty look like I'd startled him on purpose. I backed away fast. I didn't look back. I walked until my lungs burned. I got to my car and sat there shaking and laughed again, because what else do you do when your body is stuck on panic? That was the moment I made the only decision that actually helped. I stopped trying to solve it. I stopped trying to make it make sense. I stopped trying to pin it to a tarp or a bat or a cable. Because maybe it was those things and my brain twisted them into a monster. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, the outcome was the same. The river didn't want me there anymore. The bridge didn't want me under it. The night didn't want me calm. I moved a month later. Not across the country, just away from the river. Different neighborhood, different view. No water, no bridges in my daily routes. I told people it was for work, for convenience, for a fresh start. Normal reasons. Safe reasons. The scar healed into a thick rope. The pain faded into a dull ache that shows up when it rains, like the river left a weather sensor in my back. Sometimes I still wake up sweating because I dreamed I was underwater and something was pulling me by the leg. Sometimes I hear a plastic bag snap in the wind and my heart jumps. Sometimes late at night, when the building settles and the pipes tick, I swear I catch a faint rhythm in it, like a memory trying to become a sound again. But I don't go check the hallway anymore. I don't grab a knife. I don't chase it. I keep my doors locked. I keep my windows shut when it's windy. I keep my distance from water like it's a person I used to love and now don't trust. I have no idea what happened that night. I have no idea what made that noise or what threw me like that, or what carved my back open in 3 clean tracks like it knew exactly where it put them. I just know I'm never crossing that bridge or paddling on that river ever again.